He pulled me out of the grave that night, and I couldn't be more thankful to him for what he's done for me. And since then, God has called me to be in the ministry. Not only did he clean me up and gave me a new life, he lets me serve him. I think that's the best part about who God is. No matter what you've done, no matter what you've done in your past, God can still use that person. And I'm amazed what he's done in my life. I have a long way to go. I haven't arrived, but I know that I'm his and that he'll never leave me nor forsake me. So originally how I got my name was my dad and mom wanted to name me after an old show. I don't even know what the show is, to be honest. But they wanted to name me John Morgan, and it was one name. And they even told them John Morgan, last name Watson, at the hospital, but they didn't. They put the space in between the John and the Morgan, and so there for a long time I couldn't stand my name. I hated it because it had Morgan in it. I thought it was a girl's name, and so. But as I got older, and people that knew me from church and family and stuff like that, they just call me John Morgan. So it always kind of stuck with me. I guess probably 5-6 years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to introduce myself as John Morgan from now on. I have lived in Amarillo for the majority of my life. Born and raised in church, a church mouse. My dad was a youth pastor for several years. And then he went to Minnesota for 4 years. When I was 12, he was called up there. And it was probably one of my favorite places to be as a kid. My childhood is there. Met a lot of really cool people there in Minnesota. And made professions of salvation when I was probably 7, 8. I remember my brother mimicking me what to say. Hey, say this, say that. Yes, yeah, that's what. And I just wanted to be saved. As a church kid, it just becomes so routine to go to the altar, to pray, and there really be no heartfelt desire behind it. It's just kind of routine. When I got to Minnesota, I met a young man who was a big influence on my life at that time, and he led me down a lot of wrong paths. And at the age of 16, I was so far into sin that my dad didn't know what to really do with me. So he sent me to a boys ranch, Eufaula, Oklahoma. It's called Calvary Boys Ranch. And at the time, they housed anywhere from 50 to 100 kids from ages 13 to 18. And I went there as a 16-year-old, fully thinking that I was saved. 3 days in, I felt abandoned almost, and was really emotional. So I wanted to see the director. His name was JR. And I went to his office and said, I just wanted to talk to him honestly about why would my parents drop me off here, things of that nature. And I realized that when I got there, I was really emotional, and I just made a profession. I told him I just need to be saved. And I really clung on to that. You know, I said the prayer, I cried, and I thought it was genuine. I felt a little bit of change, you know. And then I felt good for a few months. I was taken out of the boys' ranch, and I came back to Amarillo and attended an independent fundamental Baptist church here. And very shortly after, I was getting into more trouble and had a very, very rebellious heart towards any kind of authority, whether it be my parents or the pastor or police officers, no matter who it was. I wanted my way, and that was it. And I was cool because I was saved. I had a license to sin. That was the church kid mentality in me. I can do what I want now because Jesus' gift is free, and I believe in it, and therefore I can sin as much as I want, but I was very bitter at some of the people that were in the church, the leadership in the church, the whole way they did things, and it led me down a path of destruction. I ended up leaving my house at the age of 17. My parents basically said, you need to go somewhere else because you're not willing to obey our rules. And since you think you're a man, you can go live like your own man. I went to stay with a friend, and his mom welcomed me in. I still remember the day that I left. My mom was crying on the porch, and I didn't have really any kind of emotions at all. I was so hard, and my heart was so hard towards my parents and towards anything that was good. I started getting into some drugs, not heavy, but one night I led a group of friends to the same church that I was very angry and bitter with, and we broke in and we vandalized it. And I did that twice to two different churches. I was very bitter and angry, not knowing that I was, but I was, looking back now, and ended up catching 2 burglary charges at the age of 17. Had a theft charge, was put on probation. My dad bonded me out. I got in trouble again. He left me in the second time. By God's grace, even as a lost person, he allowed me to go through probation. I ended up violating my probation again because I was hanging out with people that I shouldn't be around, people who I thought wanted the best interest for me instead of people who really loved and cared for me. And by the age of 20, I was in state jail in Plainview, Texas, and did a very short stint there. And I got some jailhouse religion. I said, hey, God's merciful and gracious to me. He allowed me to make it through this, and so therefore I'm saved. And I told myself I'll never go back and do that stuff again. And when I came out the same night I hopped off the bus in Amarillo, my heart was going right back to the same stuff I had did, hanging out with the same people, doing the same stuff. And there was one night I was walking home from a friend's house, name's Billy, and we were playing video games, doing stuff that 21-year-olds shouldn't really be doing at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was walking home, and I was feeling just depressed, empty, like something was missing in my life. And I told myself that I'm going to go back to the Boys Ranch. They had an older men's program called the City of Refuge for men who just needed to get away. If you struggle with addiction, any kind of maybe trying to get back on your feet and stuff like that, they accepted men to come through of all walks of life, which I'm thankful for, and just have a place to stay, a city of refuge. So I checked myself in. This was my choice. I remember looking back now, I chose to go and to get my relationship right with Christ, because at the time I truly believed that I was saved. And I got there, everything was going good. I had no convictions of really anything. And then one night, there was a revival. I believe it was the first night on a Wednesday night, February 17th of 2015. I could have the date wrong. I don't really know. But Charles Tenney, big man, but really soft-spoken, was given a message about love. And I had no idea what God had in store for me that night. As I was sitting through the message, maybe as soon as it started, I felt very uncomfortable. Like something was just bothering me in my heart. Not anywhere like outside or anything, but inside of me, I was so uncomfortable. And as the message went on, and I just kept hearing things that God is love, and he loves me, and that he's not one to despise us, I fell under heavy conviction about my sin. And I believe that the message was specifically for me that night. I ignored the altar call because I kept telling myself that I was saved, that I just came here to get things right with God. And I ignored the altar call, and I went back to the little kitchen place where they always made us food afterwards. And I remember it was a paper plate with a burger, a bag of chips, and a Coke. And I was under so much conviction. I couldn't even eat. I didn't want any food. I just wanted that feeling to just go away. And so I threw my food away. I was pacing back and forth, and I'm sure people thought something was wrong with me. And I tried to leave the double doors, and I just couldn't go. I just remember a small voice inside my heart tell me that I was lost and that I needed to believe in the gospel. And that's when I turned around. And I believe when I turned around is when I got saved, is when I stopped running and started realizing that God loves me for all the things I had done. And He wasn't like humans. He wasn't like the people that I had grown up around inside a church. And even though I believe that those people had good intentions, I don't believe they portrayed God like how we should as Christians. And I believe that that really damaged me as a young kid a lot. And it says, I was reading this morning, it's crazy, in Romans 2, we talked about that earlier, that and it said, knowest not that the goodness of God leadeth thee to repentance? And up until that time in my life, I had always known judgment and, just every little thing that we did was just this and that. And I was very bitter at God, and I didn't even know it until that night He broke through those walls and those barriers, and He drew me to salvation. And I accepted God's free gift. I believed in my heart that what He had for me was real. And I knelt down with a guy named Brother Brown, Andrew Brown, and he said, I already know you know what to do. And I can't even remember my prayer. I believed in my heart before I did that, and I was saved. I bawled and just said, I thank you for saving me, and I'm sorry for all my wickedness, because I was a wicked kid. But after that, there was a change in me. I went from being a thief, I went from being rebellious, to all those desires of that wicked stuff in my heart. Now, I can be rebellious at times still, but it was much different. He saved me from a life of thievery, drugs, alcohol, trying to please other people, and just, He pulled me out of the grave that night. And I couldn't be more thankful to Him for what He's done for me. And since then, God has called me to be in the ministry. Not only did He clean me up and gave me a new life, He lets me serve Him. I think that's the best part about who God is. No matter what you've done, no matter what you've done in your past, God can still use that person. And I'm amazed what He's done in my life. I have a long way to go. I haven't arrived, but I know that I'm His and that He'll never leave me nor forsake me. And for those out there that might be struggling with the same things I struggled with growing up in church and just going through the motions of things and feeling like you're special and all this kind of stuff, well, I'm here to let you know that you are special in God's eyes. He loves you. He loved you enough to die on the cross for you. And what He can give you is much more than this world will ever give you. This empty world will never satisfy. But Jesus will always satisfy your needs. And I'm just thankful that He loved me enough that night to draw me to salvation the way He knew I needed. It was personal. And I'll never be the same.